I wanted to make this video for a while, could never quite formulate how to make it or what to do with it. And I've decided I'm ready. While I was working as a field engineer for SQL Server while I was employed by Microsoft, I visited many companies. And there are two that stand out because of the remarkable relationship these companies had with their employees. And it's so remarkable, I've tried to think from time to time about what lessons could be learned from these companies. And I've almost reached the conclusion that nothing can be learned, despite their success and the happiness and all that. And I'll tell you why. My current conclusion is nothing can be learned. The reason I'm posting it is you might have a different idea. You might say, yes, we can learn some generally applicable business ideas that make for a good workplace environment, make companies successful. And if you do, that's what I want to know about. Make your own video, make comments here, do something. I'm not going to tell you the names of the companies. If you do a little research, you can probably figure it out, at least for one. And I just am struggling with why I wouldn't say the names, but I'm not going to for whatever reason. One company is a golf club manufacturer, and if you play golf, I can't imagine you haven't heard their name. You may even own some clubs made by this company. My engagement was there to go for a couple of days and have some meetings with the database administrators to discuss their approach to solving problems, some issues they were having. There wasn't anything really specific that they were having problems with. It wasn't troubleshooting. It wasn't official training with prepared slides. They just wanted somebody to talk to who could interact with them, give them feedback about the way they were doing things, the ideas they had, their plans for the future. So I went, and their facility I went to was, let's say, a square block in a city, surrounded by a fence. It was moderately secure. You went to the gate. Somebody had to come from wherever you were going to retrieve you, but everyone was very friendly. So we get back into the conference room where we're going to be working, and there, let's say, me and about 6 employees of the company, including the supervisor, and they were mostly DBAs or had jobs closely associated so that they should be included in this group. And the supervisor stood up and started describing their environment, talking about how they used applications, and this generated additional conversation and comments among this group. I don't know that they did, but this is a digression. Very often when you're in a situation like that, people will apologize because they say, oh, I'm sorry we're talking about this. This is a waste of your time. And the answer is absolutely not. I'm here as a resource. And the more you discuss things with yourself to discover things, that's a plus. I wasn't running the show, even in this meeting. But as the supervisor talked and she gave examples of different things, I thought, I guess she's a golfer because she knew a lot about golf. And the more she talked, I realized she not only knows about golf, she knows about golf club manufacturing. This was an IT person. And then as the group discussed, it really seemed like they all did. I was really surprised. So at a break or something, I think I said something to one of the people. Gosh, you people know a lot about golf club manufacturing. And she says, oh yeah. She says, see that Jim there? You met Jim, right? Yeah, right. He's part of the group. He was one of the DBAs working for the supervisor. They said, well, he's one of the, she mentioned their last name. It's not a freakish last name, but not particularly common either. He's one of the family that owns the company. And she said, oh, that's not unusual. All the people in that family have jobs in the company, but not necessarily in supervisory positions. They're not making decisions just because they can. Jim was a nice guy, ordinary guy, humble, no kiss-my-ass attitude. He wouldn't have even told me. Well, that was pretty amazing. These people knew a lot more about their company than I think most IT people would know about their companies. But it gets better. We all went to lunch. And while initially at lunch we're sitting around and talking about stuff, a continuation of our discussion in the meeting room, it turns out that not only is Jim one of the members of the family, he's on the executive board, and he's treasurer of the company. And focus of the other people eventually turns to him. And apparently what happens on a regular basis is the executive board has meetings where they make decisions, and within a few days they have a company-wide meeting where all the employees come and they tell them what decisions were made at the executive board meeting. Well, this was after an executive board meeting had occurred within the last few days and before the company-wide meeting had occurred. So Jim knew some stuff about the company, and these people were determined to gently pry something out of him just for the sake of knowing stuff, because they loved the company. They loved the family that owned it. They felt like these people didn't do a good job because they took just personal satisfaction in doing a good job. They wanted the company to succeed. They felt like they were a part of it, like they were part of the family. Now you might say, well, maybe they all got paid in stock. I don't know. I have no reason to believe that. I didn't feel that was it at all. It's that they were interested. Everybody knew about golf club manufacturing, even if they didn't play golf, because they were surrounded by it. They wallowed in it. They welcomed it. So Jim took the attitude. He said, oh no, we don't talk about what goes on before revealing it to everybody in the company. But he softened up a little bit. And I'm going to sound almost like I'm making fun of somebody, but I'm not. It was just neat to see the enthusiasm these people had for their company. They finally got Jim to say, okay, well, maybe I can tell you this. We're going to brick up the receiving dock and make that area into a parking lot. We're going to build a new receiving over here. The people in the group were thrilled. They got some, now how they would possibly benefit from that personally, the only way would be as if they got to park someplace better than they were parking. But parking wasn't a problem there. They were just thrilled to be a part of this. It was amazing. I'm going to tell a story about another company very similar. And this is a company in a Midwestern state. And they are in the pig farming business. Now, a pig farmer is not necessarily the type of businessman that you would expect to have a Microsoft Premier customer contract. They're kind of expensive. A lot of people don't even know they exist. But you get pretty darn good technical support. I went to them to perform a standard engagement that had to do with assessing performance and operation pertaining to databases. So I get out in the middle of this state, and they have their office buildings, which are kind of nice, kind of out of place, in a little bit of way. I mean, not outrageous. But. And you go in, and it turns out that the two guys who own this business come from a long line of pig farmers. And all inside the building, all around, are like murals and sepia tone photographs. You know, here's Grandpa so-and-so doing thus and such, and relatively poor people doing things. A lot of it connected with pig farming. Well, what these brothers, maybe their father started it, but what they did is they started their business so that they would inseminate sows, get little piglets, then ship them off to independent, privately owned pig farms, not mass pig farms owned by big meat companies. And these families would raise the pigs, and this company would supply them the feed and some other things that they needed. And then when the pigs got a certain size, they'd call back to this company, and they'd call Hormel or whoever, a bunch of different ones, who would then send a truck out to pick up the pigs. So these pig farmers didn't have to slaughter the pigs. All they had to do was raise them. I'm going to say all they had to do. I'm sure that was plenty of work. But at the time that I was there, they had like 300 farms that they fed pigs to, that they provided pigs for. And on the inside of their building were all sorts of success stories. The one that sticks in my mind is the guy who was a Wall Street stockbroker who decided he didn't like the life, wanted to have a family where his family, wanted to have a business where his family could work together, even if they didn't make much money. But apparently these pig farmers made more than a lot of pig farmers due to the business model. And so that was interesting. But it gets better. I'm sitting down there, working with this guy on the database, and discover a few things. One, the two brothers who run the business, they built the IT department, they did all sorts of things themselves. And when people come visit the building, they often mistake one or the other of the brothers that they see as the janitor. And the reason is, there's nothing these brothers that own the company won't do. If there's a spill, they mop it up. If there's nobody to clean the toilets, they clean the toilets. And we're talking about a business that had at the time hundreds of millions of dollars revenue. Their employees loved them. Their employees felt like part of the family. All of the employees, even the ones that grew up in the big city, seemed to know a lot about pig farming. It was amazing. These people also were happy employees, people who did their job more than just for a paycheck or for the satisfaction of doing their job well. They wanted the business to succeed. And let's see, is there anything else I want to tell about that? You get the idea. These are unusual companies. One guy said, you know, occasionally in this job I have to go out of town, stay in some podunk place to put in some computer router or something. Don't really like it. But how do you say no to a guy who's cleaning the toilets or willing to do anything, who's wanting to go with you to help you? You really don't want to say no to a guy like that. So the question I have is, to me, these two companies, I think, are very successful. I know one of them still in business. The other one I actually had a hard time finding on the web because I couldn't quite remember the name of their company, and my Google searching ability wasn't very good. But they were both profitable, successful businesses with employees who loved the business, loved the family, knew lots more about the business than they had to just because they were interested, and were not discouraged from finding out things about the business. It really had nothing to do with what they were there for. So my question is, if this is so great, what can we learn from that that we can infuse into some other business? Now, one of the things that kind of occurs to me is, well, you know, if the people in management knew more about what their employees did, and, you know, that would do something. But then I remember a story my father told me growing up. I'm not going to tell it quite the way he did. I'm not going to tell anything the way anybody else did. But he worked for a utility, had about 6,000 employees, and a vice president of the company decided that he was going to spend a half a day a month going and doing different jobs under his part of the company so that he could learn more about and feel closer to the minions. And so he did. What did he learn from that? He learned that practically every job he tried, he could be productive at a higher rate than the people who were doing those jobs. What my father said to me, I'm not so sure to him, they weren't making widgets, but let me use this as an example. Okay, so you go in and you're making some widgets, you're excited to do it, and you make a whole bunch of widgets. You say, wow, I can make widgets, I can make more than this guy who does it for a living. Yeah, imagine making widgets 40 hours a week for the rest of your life. Would you still have that enthusiasm? Would you still have that outstanding desire to be productive and show off? Probably not. And I experienced that myself when I worked for Target as a teenager. As earlier in my life, I'd had a little printing press with movable rubber type. I could spend weeks playing with that. I loved it. Well, back in the 70s, we didn't have all this electronic stuff and printers. If you went into Target, they had signs on the end caps, or even bigger signs, and that was made by a similar process. There was this big thing. You had metal type. You had to read backwards. I knew how to do that. And you inked these things and made these signs. So I was interested in that because it was so much like the toy I'd been playing with. So when the sign maker went on vacation for 2 weeks, I did it. Guess what? I could make a lot more signs than she did. And I would be sort of embarrassed to think if I showed her up because of that. Because I was excited. I wanted to do it. This was going to be fun. Well, this was her job every working day of the year. So getting back to what lessons can we learn? You know, how do we make management and workers feel closer and have that? I don't know that you can. These people had a love because the people who founded it were still an integral part of what they did and were a foundation for their jobs, were technical resources. But if you can see something that can be extracted from this that says, yeah, you know, if we did a little more of this in businesses, we'd have more successful businesses where people loved working there. I just don't see it, but I wish I could. So please comment as you see fit, or make your own video and send me a link.